Well, welcome in to episode 3 of the AL Recruiting Podcast. We're so glad that Taylor Morton is joining back in with us this week as our co-host. And so, Taylor, glad to have you back. Glad to have you after watching some games. I know you've been to a few games, and we'll talk about that later in the show, but glad to have you back, man.
Yeah, David, man, it's good to be back. And I hate I missed last week, but I'm going to try to be on as much as I can. But, man, loving the podcast and just being around our Hillcrest guys every day, just about, and being with them on Thursdays and Fridays. They are loving the podcast, and I know we'll talk about it later. But I was talking with Ethan last week, and he made sure to follow and subscribe, and he loved our last one. So, and that's a big time recruit coming out, not this year but next year. So, but man, people are loving the podcast, and so man, I hope people are liking, sharing, and subscribing.
Yeah, and if you're like, that's exactly what I was about to say. If you're watching this first, just hit the subscribe button. If you want to help us out, help us keep covering players, help us keep doing this podcast and all that we do, the easiest way, the cheapest way you can help us is just hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, and that will help us, or just subscribe to our podcast if you're listening that way. But as we start every show, and we'll continue to start every show, our Bigger Than Football segment, that's always our first segment. And I know we got a lot of other stuff coming, but Bigger Than Football, I want to talk about 9/11. We didn't talk about it last week before 9/11, but I just want to talk about kind of remembering we went through this weekend. There's 20 years since 9/11. I was 17 when it happened. Taylor, how old were you when it happened?
I was 9 years old. So I was in second or third grade.
9 years old. And I kind of remember, in my perspective now, I was enrolled in school early and graduated early. So I was my freshman year of college. I was at Gadsden State Community College. And I remember people saying, hey, the Twin Towers hit. And I think it's hard for people to imagine a world where everything doesn't show up on your phone. But even at that time, you weren't getting that kind of information on your Nokia. I mean, it was just people would see something happen on the news or heard it on the radio, and they were telling and going around and telling what happened. Kind of describe what you remember from that day.
Well, I remember I was at West Blockton Elementary School. My mom, she's the principal there now, and she was a second grade teacher at that time. But going to school like a normal day, and early that morning you start walking by the library, and most of the teachers are in the library watching TV, and you see them crying, and you're like, man, what's going on? So and it kind of, as a 9-year-old, I mean, that's a pretty big deal. You see all these teachers crying, and you thought there might have been something going on at school. You don't really know. And then they let us out early that day, and I remember my mom got my brother Trent and I home early as quick as possible, and and they just kind of explained, hey, America is under attack, and you look back now, and you know that, well, it was the towers, the Pentagon, and Flight 93 that hit the ground. And but at the moment, as a 9-year-old, and as our parents and adults that were dealing with the situation, they didn't know that was all it was. And so they thought, man, planes were going to be hitting every city in America. Yeah. And so it was paramount that everybody kind of get locked down and be safe. But I hated that, like a lockdown like we are now with COVID, but we're with COVID. But looking back, it's definitely, I would like to see what my perspective would be at the age I am now, but I pray we never have to again.
Yeah. I think for me, I just remember people saying at 17, first year in college, people were kind of saying life was going to change forever. And, you're thinking, well, not really. And really it has. I mean, everything we do, from travel and all those kind of things, life has changed.
That's right.
And, there's, kids now and recruits that are watching this, and people, you'll never know what life was like pre 9/11. as far as certain aspects of our life. And so that was one thing that was unique. And, I had a conversation this day imprinted in so many people's minds that will live through it and can remember it. I was at the James Clemens Bob Jones game a couple weeks ago, and I saw a young man, and he's a coach now at James Clemens, but he came on the field, and he was a guy that I knew his family growing up. I was friends with his cousin growing up. I mean, his dad was the music minister at my church. I mean, so that just shows you how close I was with his family. But over time, through ministry, travel, coaching, I just became disconnected from people in my hometown and that family in particular. But I saw him, and I knew exactly who he was. His name was Brett Burgess, and he's a hitting coach at James Clemens for the baseball team. And I said, "Hey, Brett," and he finally realized who I was, and we began to talk. And he said, "It's weird. You see somebody you hadn't seen in years, and you had just been talking about them the other day." And so, of course, my interest is piqued at that point. I'm like, "Hey, what were you saying about me?" And he said, "My wife and I were talking about 9/11 and talking about what we remember about 9/11. And he said, the thing I remember is that night you were the coach of our 9-year-old soccer team." And so, kind of a quick story, I was the YMCA director of soccer in that area, and helping coach and helping with the teams and stuff. And I was coaching one team. And he said, the thing I remember that you did was that you stopped before we did anything else, and you prayed for the victims of 9/11. You prayed for the people in New York, Washington, and Pennsylvania. And man, that really struck me. I told him, I said, I don't even remember doing that. And as I thought about this segment this week, I just want to say to all the coaches that are out there watching, there are times that you think what you do doesn't really matter, and how you act doesn't matter. But it really does matter. Even in the moments that you don't think people are listening, and the moments you won't remember, there'll be moments you don't remember, but your players remember, and those memories will be imprinted in their mind. And because there may not be a 9/11 happen, I pray that there's not, but I also know that how we act matters in front of our players.
That's right. And you've heard it said over and over again, it's not just about what you say, it's how you live, right? And so people can't trust what you say all the time, but they can trust how you walk and how you live. If you want to see what someone believes, then just watch how they live. You don't necessarily, hopefully their words back it up, but if you see how someone lives, you know who they truly are.
Yeah. And I hope that if you're watching this, your foundation's grounded in Christ. And I hope that when you are faced with adversity, you go to God's word for that. But, we're just talking about adversity. Adversity is one of the things that if you want to see who a person really is, you put them through adversity. You deal with adversity. That's when your true person and your true character comes out. And I'll say it like this, you get down at halftime and you're 30-0, and then you're getting beat 30-0. Are you going to be the coach that goes into the locker room and you cuss the kids out, you yell at them and scream at them and just scream all kinds of derogatory things? Or are you going to be the guy that builds them up and encourages them? Because the players are going to remember that. They're going to remember the tirade, or they're going to remember how you encouraged them and you stepped up in their lives too.
Yep. I think Dr. J Strack says it best. And there's a couple things that happen when you're around the table, and you can throw it to the locker room idea as well. But you might not be the smartest person at the table, the most athletic person at the table, most popular, whatever person at the table. But the one thing you can be at the table is the biggest encourager at the table. And it goes right into what you were talking about.
Yeah. And I'll leave it with this. And I think so often we get caught up in wins and losses. When Brett and I were talking that night, Brett never told me who won the game. He didn't remember. He didn't. We don't remember who we were playing. We don't remember how many goals were scored. We don't remember if we won the game, but we remember how we acted. And for the coaches that are watching this game, there's a lot of you that are caught up in wins and losses, are watching this podcast. There's a lot of you caught up in wins and losses. And I know that's important. I know that's what keeps you your job. I get that. And that puts food on the table for your family. But for a lot of the things you say and do 20 years from now, your players won't remember whether you won or lost. They'll remember how you acted and how you treated them.
That's right. That's right.
Thanks so much for tuning in today in our segment 1, Bigger Than Football. We're going to be talking about some of the games we've been watching in our next segment. And just remember that, yes, football is important. Yes, recruiting is important, but there are things bigger than football. And we always want to bring that perspective every week. Thanks so much for listening. All right, guys, welcome back to the show. We are going to be talking about some games we've been to recently in the past weeks, and I'm going to let Taylor start us out. I know he was at Hillcrest last week. Tell us about who they were playing, some players you saw, and some big plays.
Yeah, so Hillcrest had Wetumpka last week. Great game. It was a great defensive battle. I know we talked a lot about Ethan Crawford, who had a great game. Ethan's a great athlete, and we already expect big things from him. So we'll probably cover him more, especially when you come to Tuscaloosa in 2 weeks. We'll have a chance, you'll have a chance to meet him and talk with him. And Coach Mitchell's doing a great job, and the whole staff there is. But a couple of notable guys. 2 weeks ago, I was at Bibb's game, and I missed Hillcrest versus Brookwood. But Hillcrest backup quarterback Jamison Farley, he's actually a student in my student ministry. And I can't tell you how important and how incredible it is for a high school team to have a backup like Jamison Farley, because Jamison is one of those guys that I know he's going to be starting anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? And so he's behind Ethan Crawford, who's going to be playing at a SEC school more than likely, or at least a big Division I school. And Jameson's just waiting his turn, And so when Jameson went in 2 weeks ago, I think he had two rushing touchdowns and played a great game. Ended up being the player of the week, and so the Tuscaloosa player of the week. So, and that's pretty cool coming from your backup quarterback being the player of the week. So he had a great game then, and he came in. Ethan lost his helmet in one play, and he came in, did a great job when he had to. But on the defensive side of the ball, Luke Williams, like I talked about a couple weeks ago, he's also a punter, and I know he's going to end up going to play college baseball somewhere. And more than likely will probably be a 2-sport athlete in college. He did well, and he also plays safety for Hillcrest. But Barkley Crawford, the cornerback, had 2 interceptions. Sophomore, he started as a freshman last year, had a great game as well. Just an incredible athlete. I think you can put definitely DB by his name, but you can put an athlete sticker by his name as well, because Barkley, no relation to Ethan, other than their brothers on the field, but he had a great game, and I look forward to seeing some great things from him. But we also have a big game this weekend, ACA versus Bibb County. Now, it's a tough one for me because that's my alma mater, Bibb County, and then I've got a lot of students in my youth group that go to Hillcrest, but we have a lot that go to ACA as well. So I'm gonna kind of be torn a little bit on who I'm pulling for. At the end of the day, I'm gonna pull for my students, but I got to pull for my alma mater as well. But this is really, this has turned into a big time rivalry. Really, they played each other the past at least 3 years, I think. And I know, I think 2 years ago, Bibb County pulled it off and won the game. Last year, ACA did win at Bibb, but they play at ACA this week. And Bibb County, man, they're looking good. They're playing well. I got to watch them at their homecoming. And ACA, obviously, man, they have a great team as well. So it should be a great matchup. But Bibb County lost their running back last year, Deshaun Morrell. He's now playing at UCLA, a big-time college program, which they're having a great year so far. So that's a big loss.
And those Sissy Blue, right? And the
Sissy Blue that Coach Orgeron got to find out about that Sissy Blue. But
right.
But Bibb has always had great athletes. It's a crazy thing. We're a 4A school, but I remember in high school, I'm a freshman. I'm playing with guys like Ben Jones, who plays for the Tennessee Titans right now. He's a senior, and then a junior is Zach Stacy, who went on to play for Vandy, got drafted by the St. Louis Rams or the LA Rams now, almost was rookie of the year, his rookie season, and then got I think he got released or traded to the Jets and had an unfortunate injury, broke his ankle, and I think that kind of did him in. But and that's not even including all the college athletes that were on the team. So that's a little 4A school in the middle of nowhere that has really really brought a lot of attention to that side of Alabama. But they've been they've had a lot of athletes and they've reloaded, but they're without Deshaun because he's at UCLA. So it should be a great game, and I'm going to try to catch both of them this week. I've got a wedding to do this weekend. I got a rehearsal done on Friday, and then I'm going to hit Hillcrest and ACA as quick as I can to support all my students. But I got some students like Perkins Strickland over there, and I got I think Blake Jackson over there as well. And so and there's several more. I'm probably missing them, but I know ACA has some great athletes, and excited to see how that game goes as well.
All right. Well, Taylor, thanks for that breakdown, man. Coming up on our next segment, I'm going to break down the games I went to last Friday and some things, some players I saw at Mars Hill Bible School. What an incredible program. Listen in. Thanks so much for being with us. Taylor, I'm going to tell you, I had been to Mars Hill Bible School probably 13, 14 years ago. And then I showed up Friday night. And, we're talking about one of the premier small school programs in the state of Alabama. They won 1A in 2018. They're state runners up in 2A in 2019, and then they won the state championship in 2020. And I know if they win a playoff game this year, they're going to move up to 3A. I mean, that's just, look, I don't think it's really fair how AHSAA punishes, private schools for being successful. I mean, I get the 1.5 rule, but then if they keep winning, they keep moving them up. We're moving them up. I'm not sure I like that at all either. I mean, because that's not a huge player pool to pull from at Mars Hill. They just do a great job. Coach Higgins does a great job developing the players that are in his program. And so, I mean, I'm not a fan of punishing that. That's another debate for a different day. But man, Mars Hill, the facility they have, Sprint Turf Field, they got a screen that shows replays and stuff. I mean,
in high school,
I mean, and we'll talk about Mountain Brook at some point too. Their coach is going to probably come on in a week or two, talk about the screen they put in. We'll hold that for another day. But Mars Hill's facilities are incredible. And then the players they have, and look, if you're in 2A, I'm not sure you're knocking them off this year. They only have 2 seniors. And so if you move them up to 3A, I still think they're going to compete. I mean, the only team at small school that's putting out the kind of production they are is Fife. And so Mars Hill, let me just break it down for you. They got probably their best recruit on the field, or one of their top recruits, Kobe Keenum. He's offensive tackle. He's 6'4", 285 pounds. And he's a dude. I mean, sometimes people ask you in recruiting, like, what are you looking for? Especially with offensive linemen, when they walk out of the locker room without pads on, that's when you know. I mean, I was looking for Kobe. I hadn't really watched him play, didn't know what he looks like, but all it took for me to watch was them walking out in warm-ups with no pads on. I was like, that's him. I mean, because he's got offers from Arkansas, Colorado, FSU, Georgia Tech, Kansas, Louisville, Penn State, Southern Miss, Troy, UAB, UCF, and Virginia. I mean, and I said it, I watched him play. I mean, and I put together a highlight film. It's on this YouTube channel. Go watch it. I mean, he's just pancaking people, and he plays with a mean streak. He's the definition of a road grader. And the thing is, he's big and he's huge, but he's not flabby. He's tight, man. And it's all just muscle. And he's running with bad intentions. Like when he pulls on a play, I mean, if the whistle hadn't blown and you're the DB, you better have your head on a swivel because he's
coming for you.
He's coming to
He's
kill you,
coming.
man.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
And so my assessment of him is I thought, man, he's really good at all aspects of the game on the line. I mean, I saw pass pro, whatever. But man, if you're a running team in college in Power 5, you want this kid on your team because man, on running plays, he just plays with bad intentions. And I mean, you know this. You got a guy that hits you every play, and a lineman that just kills your will, man.
It does. It does. And you got a guy, I think of a couple guys just that I've played with in the past and that I've seen. One of those guys is obviously Ben Jones. We talked about earlier. He's 10-year vet in the NFL. He would come at you every play and knock your lights out. Didn't care how tired you were, how tired he was. He was going to do his job. And his cousin Bo Burks at Bibb County, who's committed to North Carolina, same kind of mindset. Got that motor that you can't really coach. It just comes with the athlete, comes with the player. And so yeah, man, you see those guys, and it's a whole nother ball game for them.
Yeah, and Kobe, to me, he's a 2023 guy. He's a junior, so Mars Hill's got him next year. So look out, 3A. They're going to be running behind him next year because they're winning a playoff game. I don't care what anybody says.
Right.
And so, the sky's the limit for him. I mean, if he grows 6'5", 6'6", I mean, I think he's an SEC lineman right now, but if he keeps moving, he might move to tackle eventually at that level. And be able to play. And so I love the way this kid plays. I think he's one of my top linemen for 2023. You just don't see those guys every day. There's another kid on Mars Hill named Damian Thompson. I believe he's the top 2024 wide receiver and one of the top 2024 wide receivers in the state of Alabama. Let me just read to you some numbers in the game. He had 3 touchdown catches and 1 kickoff return in about two quarters and 1 minute.
Wow.
And he was electric, man. I mean, he just was all over the field. You cannot guard him in man coverage on one-on-one in high school ball. There's just there's not guys that can. His coach told me that after the game, Coach Higgins said after his freshman season, he already had interest from Notre Dame and Georgia. And I was like, man, I can't wait to watch this guy play. And I've only heard good stuff about him, and I only got to see him for two quarters and 1 minute. And he dominated the game, dominant. And the thing about these guys is they both play both ways. They could stop,
especially these smaller schools.
Yeah, they could stop and say, you know what, I'm not playing both ways. I'm not doing that. And but they do. But they continue to do that and help their team and play both ways.
They're not above it, and that's good. That's good to see from these athletes.
Exactly. And man. And Kobe and Damian both made huge plays on defense as well. Then we had talked about him a couple of weeks ago, but I got to see Griffin Hansen in person. Look, man, he was in this. I don't know what the passer rating would be if you were going by NFL or college scoring, but he was 8 for 8 with 5 touchdown passes.
Wow. That's great wherever you're at. I don't care what level of sport you're playing, level of competition. That's incredible.
And get this, that was in 2 quarters of play. He didn't even play the second half. I mean, and he's fast. He can rush the ball. He moves with his feet. And I'm one of those guys right now. I think he's 5'10", 160. He's a 10th grader. I mean, look, 2024. I mean, he's probably going to grow some more.
Yeah.
And look, man, he is the only guy in the state right now that can possibly do what Zach Pyron is doing at Pinson Valley. Zach has a chance to win 4 state championships. Guess what? Griffin Hansen has an opportunity to win 4.
Wow.
Because he's the guy we talked about as an 8th grader. He led his team to the state championship. They lost, and then they won he won it as a 9th grader. And man, the poise, the maturity you see, even as a 10th grader, it is just shocking. I mean, the way he leads his team, the way they huddle up, the way he calls plays, the way he makes decisions, man, is just outstanding to watch this kid play. Man, they got another kid. I mean, they are the 10th grade class at Mars Hill is loaded. If you're a college coach, listen to this. They got another kid, Skylar Sterling. He's a defensive end. And I hope Skylar listens to this podcast, because I'm going to say this. If he'll hit the weight room and if he'll put the work in, the sky's the limit for that dude. I mean, he looks the part. He's already fast. He's explosive off the ball. He's kind of raw and talented, but man, the sky's the limit for him. And he could be a guy that, number one, he plays on a team where he's going to get noticed, because I'm telling you, you play with Griffin and Damian in that class, they're going to be coaches that show up to your practice, and you want to be the guy. You think maybe you're a recruit listening right now, and I'm going to say this. You play with some dudes and you think, man, I wish I would get noticed. Well, be the guy that gets noticed. When they're at practice, you be the guy that the coaches look over and they're like, hey, who's that kid? Who's that kid?
Be the guy that turns the heads.
Yeah. And so, you know, there's a couple other guys that I want to just highlight real quick from that game that I thought, you know, played well. And I'm trying to pull it up real quick, just to make sure that I can get them in here. But man, you know, Mars Hill, if I'm a college coach, I'm developing a relationship with Coach Higgins, and I'm texting him every year, hey, when can I stop by practice? When can I come and watch? I mean, Coach Higgins is doing just such a good job with them that there are going to be players that can play all over the field. Last guy I want to talk about, I like him. I don't really think he's probably not big enough and to play Power 5, but I definitely think he can play D2, D3, NAIA. Jake McCluskey, he's a senior for them this year. So if you're watching this, you want to recruit him. I love his motor. I love the way he plays. I love the intensity he plays with. He's in the backfield all the time. He had a block the other night, man, where he was playing offensive line, just about killed a kid. and I'll say this, you know, Mars Hill went up 60-0 over Hatton in the third quarter, and I left after that. They just put in the backups, and the game ended up being 60-12. Here's the thing, man. The game just got away from Hatton. Hatton has some guys on their offensive line, if they'll put in the work, that they could turn into some players, and that could be, you know, good players at D3 and AI D2, but they just got to be able to put in that work. So wanted to just kind of want to shout out to them. If you end up watching, I'm not bashing on them, and I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about that. Look, it's just a few plays that the game got away from you. And I think Mars Hill came in with a great game plan and kind of took the game away too. And I want to give credit to their coaches, but man, look, if you're a college coach and you're watching this podcast, you need to develop a relationship with Coach Higgins and Mars Hill, because you are going to have a pipeline if somebody will be over there to take the time and really recruit that place hard. I would. I mean, and the same thing with Fife. If you're in North Alabama, go from Mars Hill, go to Fife. Recruit both of those schools each and every year, because there's players at those schools.
That's right.
Stay tuned for our next segment. We've got some interesting facts and some hustle plays from some players we saw this week that I think can contribute in college and help you out. Well, welcome back in. We want to talk about some interesting facts and hustle plays that I have noticed specifically last week. One of the things I posted on Twitter, what were some of the interesting facts that you have heard about or know about, and we got a pretty decent response. But you know, for me, as we talk about some interesting things happening in the state of Alabama, Fife High School, one of the premier, if not the premier small school program in the state of Alabama. Coach Benefield and Fife, they have been good for as long as I can remember, Fife has just been a program that just continues to churn out wins. But man, they are on a run right now where they're on a 48-game winning streak. Now, it was close last week, but they held on against Sylvania. I saw the highlights. There was a throw. It was really, really close. Sylvania came close, but Fife continues their winning streak, and it's the second longest winning streak in the country right now at 48 games. And the only team ahead of them is Southern Columbus Area High School out of Pennsylvania. They have a 63-game winning streak. So just an impressive job that Coach Benefield is doing at Fife, and the kids are doing there, and players there. And then kind of talking about premier programs, this is one of the schools that has ascended the mountain in the last few years, but Thompson High School, man, this season in 4 games, they have not surrendered a touchdown. And prior to last week, they hadn't even given up a point. They'd shut out everybody, and they only gave up a field goal last week to Spain Park. And they've defeated their first 4 opponents 217-3. Man, just what an impressive job Mark Freeman's doing at Thompson, and just seeing the kind of things they're doing now. Hey, I'm looking forward to this week. I do believe Hewitt Trussville will score some touchdowns on Thompson, and just this is a matchup of the year. Hewitt Trussville versus Thompson. It's going to be a great game. It's going to be a wonderful game to watch. And so, I think that this is going to go a long way deciding that region. This game will be a long way. I know Hoover's still in the mix, and we still get the matchup of Hoover and Hewitt Trussville and Hoover and Thompson. But boy, you're talking about doesn't get any bigger than this, than Thompson versus Hewitt Trussville. And I posted this, and here's the question I want to ask as far as interesting facts, and we may take some years to find this out. But this game, there's a lot of college athletes on the field, but the question that can come up is how many NFL athletes are on this field? I don't know if we'll ever see a number as big as this one, with how many potential NFL players are going to play in this one high school game from Thompson and Hewitt. Another interesting fact, been a long time. I want to congratulate Northside. They beat Gordo for the first time since 1992. Big win for Northside. And so congratulations to them. Kind of moving on. Those are some interesting facts. If you got some, send them in, tweet them in, reply. We'd love to keep talking about some of those, but I want to highlight a few players that I just think maybe they're not getting some recognition that they deserve. And if you're watching this looking for a player to recruit, the first one I'm going to start with is a 2022 cornerback for the Auburn Tigers. Now, that's Auburn High School. Carson Yancey. They were playing against Dothan last week, and I've heard nothing but good things about this player. Things I've read, readings, posts by his coach, Keith Etheridge, just talk about him being the real deal. Other members of the media talking about it's unbelievable that he doesn't have any offers right now. Everybody says he runs a legit 4.4. And I think after what I saw last week, the kind of heart and determination on a hustle play, I think this speaks volumes of him, is that he ran down the Dothan running back. He broke like a 70-yard run to the left. Carson was on the other side of the field and runs him down and caught him at the 2-yard line. The defense held him to a field goal, and that's the only points that Dothan scored in that particular game. I mean, it would have been so easy. Auburn's a great program. They have a great offense. It would have been so easy to give up on that play and know you're going to win this game. But it's really about playing every play and having pride in how you play, and just knowing, watching a young man do that in a highlight, That's the kind of thing that I watch, and I've watched this film. I've heard his coach talk about him. I've listened to other teams and other media members talk about him. Look, this is a guy that should have a ton of offers. I don't know what coaches are missing here, but if you listen to this podcast or you're watching this is a guy you need to follow and you need to make an offer. So this is not just from me. It's coming from his coach, coming from other players, coming from members of the media. Another guy that I saw a hustle play same week, I guess it was the week of hustle plays, Jamal Miles. He's a 2023 cornerback for Pelham High School. They were playing Stanhope Elmore. And again, this was a pass. He's on the other side of the field. They catch it and the guy runs to the right. He's breaking away for a touchdown. And he literally just runs him down and right before the score. And this was a huge play in this game because Pelham wins the game 14-13. So it's a touchdown saving play. But you see a play like that, and I just think, again, that kind of speaks to the character and the type of player that this guy is. But the week before, Jamal had the duty of covering Calera's Kobe Prentice, who's committed to Alabama. And, Pelham wins that game. Pelham beats Stanhope. He's helping Pelham get the wins. But those type of plays are just tone-setting plays for the defense, for the game, that we're not going to quit. And I just look and think, guys like Jamal, guys like Carson, those are the type of players that I want on my team if I'm recruiting. And those are the type of guys that I want to go after. Even one guy I failed to mention last week in the podcast I meant to, as far as cornerbacks go, DJ Davenport at Bob Jones. He's another guy that there was just so many guys in that Bob Jones, James Clemens game that my notes and everything, but DJ was a guy who had to cover tough receivers. He made big plays in the game, made big pass breakups. He's a hustler, plays hard on every play, makes tackles on defense. And, just seems to me to play with a lot of heart. And, you watch the film that they're put out there. There's nothing that can stop, you from watching that film and understanding what kind of player this person is by the way they hustle. And I just think you look at DJ, you look at Jamal, you look at Carson. Those are three defensive backs in the state of Alabama that hustle on every play, that play hard. I know there's more out there. Reach out to us on Twitter, reach out to us on YouTube, make a comment if you want us to talk and look at your film and maybe talk about you. But those are the kind of things that are huge when a college coach is watching, is to see these type of hustle plays. And so, just some interesting things going on in the state. I'm looking forward to what else happens this week. Maybe we talk about it next week. But if you're staying with us today, get ready. We're going to interview Jonathan Snider, the head coach of Ardmore, the 4-0 Ardmore Tigers, and a longtime friend of mine. And you don't want to miss this interview, so stay tuned. Well, thank you so much for listening to the AL Recruiting Podcast. We are excited today to be joined by Coach Jonathan Snider, the head coach of the Ardmore Tigers, the 4-0 Ardmore Tigers. And man, Jonathan, thanks so much for being on with us and joining with us today.
Well, I appreciate you calling and asking me to be on, David. Everything's going good right now, but things can change, but man, it's a joy ride right now for sure.
That's right. I mean, look, all you can be is beat the people in front of you. You're 4-0, and that's right. What you guys have done. And so let me just say, full disclosure, I've known Coach Snider since 2007. He was across the hall from me when I was teaching at Sparkman High School. I was teaching computers. And look, man, me teaching computers back then is like cavemen trying to teach rocket scientists. I don't know why they had me there, but that's where they felt like I fit best. But I think the Lord had me there to meet good people like you, and build relationships with people like you. And I've, we haven't always stayed in touch over that full time, but it's just been nice to know godly men like you that are leading football programs in our state.
Right. Yeah. It's that was a long time ago, David. There's been a lot of things that changed, but yeah, you're right. I mean, it's good to make, connections with people that you used to work with. We went through a lot there, but I appreciate the kind words, and, good to have, when I found out you were doing this, it was pretty awesome to know. And then you being back, close to here, and sort of
Mhm.
reconnecting while I was at Athens, it brought back some good memories.
Yeah, and so let's just talk about that for a minute. It's your first year as a head coach, but you were at Athens under Cody Gross, and I think Athens is becoming like a head coaching pipeline under Cody, because
Yeah.
I mean, two of you guys got hired. I think just two got hired to be head coaches this year, and you're one of them at Ardmore.
Yeah.
And just talk about what that transition has been like.
Well, I got hired in May. Everything, transition probably as easier as well as what you could expect it. I mean, just from the kids to the teachers to the administration, everything has been really, really smooth. Even though I was fortunate to have a couple of weeks before school got out to walk the halls and, talk to some kids that needed to play and things to that, and even begin to insert a weight program of my liking. And so that helped. I know some people are not that fortunate at that in during the hiring process, but I was fortunate to have a couple of weeks with these kids. Even though I was pulling double duty at Athens, I was able to, the people at Athens worked with me about getting me over here as much as I could, while I was finishing out my last couple of weeks there. Good. I mean, kids have bought in. They bought in from the first day. I mean, it's been really, really smooth. Coach Gross has been nothing but support. I've leaned on him for several things throughout the process, and will continue to do so. And I think his program, from not only from a kid's perspective, but also from coaches, he spends time molding those of us that want to become head coaches. He does a good job of molding us, of giving us roles, of giving us expectations that we can carry on and use, some of that in our own programs moving forward. So, I can't thank him enough. Even though I came from a coaching background, my dad being a head coach, he's helped me here, year 48 on the sideline.
That's awesome.
I have a pass with it, but still having people help you mold along the way and give you duties that you don't really see every day that you're going to have to do one day when you become a head coach, has really helped, through the process. Now, there's nothing that can prepare you for sitting in this chair,
Mhm.
regardless of how much you've seen until you actually do it. And but anyway, people here at Ardmore, man, they've been great.
Yeah.
Community's been great, a lot of support. It's been a fun ride to this point for sure.
Absolutely. And really, congratulations too. I mean, his first 4-0 start for Ardmore since 2013. And what's that been like, just kind of hearing the excitement, because I know that there has been some down years. And so
Right.
just, starting 4-0, what's that been like in that community for you guys?
Well, last year, they started 3-0 and then got beat by Lawrence County. And one of the big things that we talked about last week, and I know you wanted the whole overall perspective, but briefly, one thing we talked about, the change in the culture. Okay, so last year you were 3-0. This year we were 3-0 going in Lawrence County, and last year you got beat. Now, whether it was a better team, whether whatever happened doesn't matter. But so how are we going to change? How are we going to make this year any different than last
Mhm.
year when it comes from what people see from the outside? And so that's been a big motivation for our kids. Now, one thing that I feel like has helped us too is that our kids, a lot of our kids that returned, I mean, they won 5 ball games last year. So they got a little bit of taste of winning. Now we're doing things differently, and the culture's got to change and continuing to change. But, it helped to have a little bit of experience winning. But now, community wise, man, this place is fired up. I mean, we've had more people on the road at Brewer and at Lawrence County than what they had in their home stands. And I mean,
That's
people,
awesome.
of course, it's, and that's one thing that attracted me to Ardmore. I mean, I've lived in this community, gone to church in this community for 15 years, and I know a lot of people, and that helped. But knowing the support that the community gives for football, regardless of wins or losses was one thing that really attracted me here. They live and breed Ardmore football. And I knew that if we could somehow, some way get things going in a positive direction and not focusing solely on wins and losses, but discipline, the way the kids play, their effort, if we could get that going in a positive direction, I mean, this place is it's it's going to be like a wildfire. And fortunately to this point, we're 4-0. The community's excited. I'm excited because we had a week off. We got some kids healed up.
Mhm.
We're going to come back. We got a home game. We've been on the road for 3 weeks. So, I think Cooper Field will be lit, come next Friday night and we play Clements for homecoming.
Yeah, and that's a big matchup too. I mean, just because those communities are so close and you guys know each other. I mean, the
Yep.
kids know each other.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
a lot of them go to church together, and
Mhm.
it's a unique place because there's so many large churches here, and there's a lot of crossover with student ministries and things. And so
Mhm.
when you have like Ardmore versus Elkmont, or you play Clements or any of those teams from around, there's just a lot of crossover with families, kids knowing each other. And so
Oh,
that'll
yeah.
be a big matchup for you guys.
Yep. It will be. Our kids go to. We have a lot of kids that go to the tech school here in Limestone County, as do many county schools have. So, they go. They're in classes with all these kids. They know each other. And so it all these county. Yeah, our big rivalry is probably Elkmont or East Limestone. But anytime you play somebody in the county, the kid, like you said, the kids know each other, families know each other. And Clements, they've got really good athletes. Coach Parker does a really, really good job with them. I know they're struggling a little bit right now, but he's going to go back to the drawing board. They're going to get their guys right. And, it's going to be a big matchup for us.
Yeah. Talk about just some of your guys. I mean, I know that sometimes and what we've said on this show is that all the time there's a lot of focus on guys that play Power 5 but and recruits that can go Power 5. But, just talk about some guys on your team that you feel like, hey, they could contribute at the next level. May not be Power 5, but some guys that can
Right.
help teams. And if I'm a college coach listening to this, and we have a lot that do, who would you tell them about?
We have a tight end / H-back outside backer, Brody Dunn, who's been a force for us. I know he started last year. I'm not sure if he started as a sophomore. I'm sure he played a lot. He's about a 6'2", 210-pound guy that loves football. I mean, he enjoys contact. He does a good job catching the ball. We're a run first offense, and a lot of it has to do with him blocking. We have a package where he comes in as the quarterback, and we run power and things with him. But he does whatever he wants to for a team. He's definitely a next level player for us, has that ability to play on the next level. His brother Walker, who actually played at Giles County, is playing for University of the Cumberlands right now and is doing a really, really good job. So there's some history there with family going on and playing in the next level. And his ACT's got to come up a little bit, but we're taking that in September or the next time it's available, maybe October. But he's working hard to try to get that up so he can get fully qualified wherever he wanted to go. But he's a player that he's a 22 guy. That people need to see. We'll be pumping stuff out from our perspective of getting some highlights out on him. But biggest thing with him right now is getting fully qualified, and then more people would need to jump on him because he's definitely an asset. For either an outside backer position, defensive end, or tight end H-back type deal. I have a sophomore. His name is Sean Morton. Sean last year was 6'2", 190. This year he's 6'4", 245.
Wow.
And he's running. He's not awkward. He's powerful. Got great hips. Very, has not come into his strength yet, but very flexible in his hips. His ankles are, pretty small, which is what you look at. He's got a high butt. So he's got some pop. Those types of things that you see, you see a kid and you're like, whatever. But this kid's got all the tools. He's got everything you need, and he's just now figuring out how to play football. He played a little bit last year as a freshman for him, but this year we actually moved him from tackle to guard because we believe in our guards being a little bit bigger, but he moves well enough because we pull, 90% of the time, and he moves well enough to pull. And last week he destroyed people. He's coming into his own, but he's a guy that'll be a 24 kid that I really think there will be a lot of coaches that roll through our weight room and see him when it's all said and done, because he's got room to grow. He's still He's still got a baby face on him. Still doesn't, as the old saying goes, still doesn't have any hair on his legs. So
Right.
so he's probably going to be, 6'6". He'll be, and he can carry a lot of weight because he's long. He's got a huge wingspan. He's not awkward. Being 15-year-old kid. So he's one that colleges need to put a pin out for. Moving forward, because he's a guy that he would be a high level D1 player. He's a Power 5 guy when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I'll just say this. I know you myself. I know you personally. I know the kind of work you're going to do. There may be guys on your roster that haven't developed yet,
correct.
But because I know the type of work and the type of program you're going to institute, there'll be guys next year that will show up and they're like, hey, where'd this kid come from? Well, it's a year of having a program in the weight room and doing the type of work that they need to do.
Correct.
And that's why I think, I want to highlight coaches that I know will do a good job, and that college coaches need to build a relationship with you. Right. And so that they can come in, see what's happening there, because it may not be this year. You may not get somebody from there, but it may be the next year or the next year or the next year by the type of program. Because there's when you start doing the things you guys are doing, there'll be middle school and elementary school kids that may not have played football in the past that'll start to play football for you.
No question. And that's what we're really looking for, is building those numbers and, keeping them around, because I tell our middle school coaches, just get them to high school, because once their bodies begin to develop, kid may never play a snap in middle school, and all of a sudden, freshman, sophomore year, he hits a growth spurt. And now he becomes a dude. So, that's what that's what I love about football. You can't ever tell. Nope. Or especially high school sports in general, you just can't ever tell when a kid's going to develop into that, and it's not all about playing college football, but I know that's a goal for a lot of kids. And, we're going to do everything we can to develop them, from a mindset, from a work ethic, from how we practice, things to that nature, to where they're set up to succeed.
Yeah, man. And just last thing, I just ask you, I love it. Just explain to people what the mantra means. You brought it from Athens. Tough people win. What does that mean to your program and to you as you kind of, you put that out, #TPW. So what's that mean?
Well, it actually came from Sam Graham, who coached with us, who played with Coach Gross at UNA, played linebacker on a couple of the championship teams, that coached with us Coach Gross's first year at Athens. And Sam has MS and he had to step away from coaching, but still a huge influencer on programs. And that was one thing he brought. And, we just instilled it in our kids. But, football teaches you so many life lessons, from not just the continuity aspect, the camaraderie aspect of being in the locker room and things of that nature, but all the ups and downs and adversities that you face, throughout a game, practice, school year, injuries, whatever it is. Football is one of those sports that truly teach you how to overcome adversity. So we just try to teach our kids that tough people win. I mean, you got to be tough to play football, but you also got to be tough to get through life. I mean, whether you have a family, kids, whatever the case may be, there's going to be times where things get tough. And are you going to be the person that tucks her tail and runs away from it? Or are you going to be the first person that faces adversity and hits it in the mouth? And that's so much football for our kids, but teaching them that to carry on, that, hey, look, you're tired, you don't feel like getting up and coming, you don't feel like practicing. Well, guess what? There's going to be days where you don't feel like going to work, or you don't feel like playing ball with your kid outside or whatever. But guess what? We have a job to do regardless of what it is. We got to suck it up and do it. And so we just, I stole it from Coach Gross. They still use it. We use it. I think Coach Phillips used it a little bit at West Morgan, because it's something that in every program, if you can instill that in your kids, then, because I look at success as being, what are my kids like 15 or 20 years down the road?
That's right.
Did what we do in our program help them develop into, great husbands, great fathers, positive impacts on communities that they live in? Did what we instill here affect them later on in life? Not just to win a ball game on a Friday night, but what happens down the road. And I think we instill these principles in them. And if we preach it, the more they hear it, and the more they see it, the more they react to it and understand that's sort of how we do things. Coach Gross used to always say it's a way of life. And that's what it is. I mean, we face adversity, hit it in the mouth, and you move on.
Yeah. And we said it earlier in the show. We were talking about 9/11 and our bigger than football segment. Adversity is how you respond to adversity and who you are in adversity. That's who you really are.
Right.
I mean, and so, man, Jonathan, I just appreciate hearing that from your heart. Look, that's the kind of player I want on my team if I'm a coach, but that's the kind of coach I want coaching my kid too. And I just appreciate what you're doing. And yeah, wins and losses matter. We get that and understand that, that's what puts food on the table, and you got to win to
Right.
keep those jobs.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, what really matters is who these men are 15, 20 years down the road.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
I appreciate that, man. And I just want to say, wish you all the best. I wish the Ardmore fan base, the Ardmore Tigers, all the best, and just continue to keep investing in kids' lives and keep loving the Lord. And I appreciate you for that, man.
Well, I appreciate it so much, David. It means a lot, us being able to reconnect and being on here and being able to talk about it. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for listening in today. Hope you have a wonderful week. Be safe traveling to watch your favorite team play, and God bless you.